Hi there, my name is Phixfox and welcome back to Heroes of Might and Magic Olden Era. Today we're going to be looking at the Nightshade School of Magic. To this point, we've already covered Daylight, Arcane, and Primal Magic, and now it's time to look at something just a little bit more sinister. So, starting off with the Tier 1 spells, we have for ourselves Web. Web is going to be a single target spell that will reduce the speed of any affected creature. It's worth noting that while many magics will infect the entire army as you level these spells up, Web is always going to be a single target spell. That's part of what makes Marl the Necromancer so good, in that he starts off with the masterful Web spell. But as you increase your proficiency with this magic, then the enemy's speed is going to be reduced even further, and it can even dispel a positive buffing haste spell that the enemies might cast. This is great for keeping enemies on their side of the battlefield. Next up, we have Unnatural Calm. Unnatural Calm is going to modify the basic attack damage of any affected enemy creature, starting off by 10% damage and then going all the way up to negative 25% damage. As you get this up to the tier 2 of proficiency, this will affect all enemy creatures on the battlefield, a really nice way of keeping your forces alive, happy, and healthy. Next up, we have the Despair spell. This is going to be a damage over time spell that will do pure damage instead of magic damage. Pure damage is very much unable to be modified by traditional means. As you increase the power of this spell, it's going to deal double damage, and at max level proficiency, it will even affect not only the target creature, but also all creatures in one hex around it. Really nice spell, really good to see some damage, and it's very stackable. Stackable in the sense that the damage can be cast multiple times onto this creature, so they take more damage and more damage and more damage and more damage, and right now they're going to take damage as soon as it's their turn. There you go. And then lastly, in the tier 1 spells, we have a buffing spell. Kind of nifty that even though we are here in Nightshade Magic and buffing spells are traditionally more for the Daylight School of Magic, there is a buffing spell here in the Nightshade School of Magic, and that's going to be Enlarged Shadow. When cast on friendly creatures, this is going to increase your attack skill and your defense skill of whatever friendly creature. The bonus will increase over rounds, and this can also potentially affect all of your friendly creatures. So really neat to see that you have some options to not only impact your enemies, but also keep your own forces happy and healthy over time. Folks, that's going to take us into the tier 2 spells. We now start off with Shade Cloak in the tier 2 spells. This is going to be a really high skill sort of spell. Target friendly creature will not be able to be targeted until the end of the round or until they take any action. And whenever your target friendly creature is under this effect, they're going to deal an extra bit of damage over time. The damage bonus is going to increase as you increase your proficiency with the spell casting. It's important to note that while you cannot be targeted, you can be, it can be impacted with AoE types of spells. For example, the Medusa's AoE damaging spell, maybe like an Ashen Dragon just descending out of the skies and dealing AoE damage. There's still ways that you can be affected, but there's not a direct route of doing damage directly to you while this spell is in effect. Next up, we have the Fatal Decay spell. This is a really nice way to counteract what the undead Necropolis forces want to do. The target enemy creature will not be able to restore hit points, and this will also remain in effect after the target's death, and it cannot be dispelled. So it's gonna happen. This is the way it is. Fatal Decay makes it so that creatures cannot be brought back to the battlefield. As you increase its value, then maximum hit point reduction is also going to increase over time, because there is a certain hit point modifier with this spell as well. So for example, if I'm looking at these guard captains, they have 12 hit points. Fatal Decay, this is going to modify that just a little bit down to 10. So from 12 down to 10, good spell in a lot of different ways. Next up, we have the Umbral Grip spell. This is going to deal pure damage to the single target that is affected. Again, the damage cannot be modified in any way. As you increase your proficiency with the spell, the damage is going to go up over time. And also when you hit max level, there's going to be -1 creatures killed every single time you cast this spell. So you're going to do, in this case, it says 260 pure damage to the target. If I'm casting this against, say, my Noble Cavalry, it's going to kill, say, 3 or 4 of them. And whatever number I was going to kill, it's going to take 1 more off the top as well on top of that. So really nice spell to get to the very max level of proficiency. Nice damaging spell, And again, up to tier 6 creatures, so not tier 7 creatures, but tier 6 creatures, it will also kill one additional creature every time you cast it. Next up, we're into the tier 3 spells, and we're going to start off with Silence. Silence is going to have an enemy targeted that will then be unable to generate focus points, and they will be unable to use special abilities. So for example, if I am to cast Silence on one of my creatures, say on my Mother Superiors, they will not be able to generate focus points by attacking, they will not be able to generate focus points by taking damage, and they will not be able to use their Celestial Flail attack modifier or any other special ability. So it's a really nice spell to kind of lock down the enemy forces. Silence can be very, very useful. And if you get this up to max proficiency, this will affect the entire enemy army. Do you think that that's going to throw a wrench in their gears? Absolutely, it will. Next up, we have the Sleep spell. Sleep is a really nifty spell for me because it's like a nice take on what we would expect from the Blind spell that you would maybe find in Heroes 2 or Heroes 3. The target enemy is going to fall asleep, and then they cannot take any actions. This will be dispelled whenever they take damage or whenever the duration of the spell will expire. But as you level this all the way up, the enemy can potentially take damage without dispelling the effect at the cost of the duration of the spell. Okay, very nice, very cool, but it's a very nuanced spell because unlike other Heroes games, this lockdown spell cannot be reapplied multiple times in the same battle. Once a target affected creature is slept, and once its duration expires or they are woken up from their sleep, you cannot cast that spell, the sleep spell, on that stack again. So really nifty way that you can make sure that you have a lockdown, high impact spell without throwing balance completely out of the window. Next up, we have the Twilight spell. Twilight is going to affect enemy ranged creatures, causing them to forget to use their ranged attack. And as you level this up, it's going to affect all the enemy creatures on the battlefield, and you can even reduce the damage to melee creatures. So you may say, well, this is like the Forgetfulness spell from Heroes of Might and Magic 3. It makes ranged creatures not be able to use their ranged attack. Yes, absolutely. But you can also make it so it will reduce melee damage even further. So I can cast Twilight on these swordsmen, and they're still going to be doing 15% reduced damage in melee. Even though they're not a ranged creature, it still can be effective for them as well. Next up, we are into the tier 4 spells. Now these tier 4 spells are pretty powerful, but there are some caveats. So for example, Berserk. Berserk is a spell that's pretty commonly known to the Heroes of Might and Magic players. It will cause the targeted creature to immediately and uncontrollably attack the closest random creature in their attack radius. It will last for one turn, essentially. The creature doing the attacking, the berserked creature, will have additional damage dealt to whatever unfriendly or friendly creature they are attacking, and as you level up the spell, they're going to do additional bonus damage. What this does not do, like other Heroes games did, is it will not be some form of hard CC. For example, if I cast Berserk on these swordsmen, they are immediately going to take their turn, and they are going to attack my Noble Cavalries, as expected. But now they will not lose their turn in battle. These swordsmen are still going to get to go right now. So there is no hard CC component to the Berserker spell. That does limit its effectiveness in some ways. Worth noting though, it can still be a potentially very, very powerful damaging spell. Next up, in tier 4, we have Summon Star Child. This is a summoning spell that will allow you to create a stack of Star Children, which are ranged AoE combatants. As you increase the proficiency of the spell casting, these Star Children will also have the ability to use a Starfall attack. So these are embodiments with a ranged attack, they blink when they move, and they have an AoE ranged damage ability all the time. Pretty cool, pretty nifty, not very tanky. The damage is, 13 to 16, that's better than my Noble Cavalry in many ways. So they're a pretty good quality unit there, and unfortunately, we're not going to be able to use their special ability Starfall here now, but Starfall will allow this creature to impact 3 hexes on the battlefield, and then that hex and all adjacent creatures to that hex will take 135 damage. It is quite possible that for these enemy crossbowmen, I could impact this hex and this hex and this hex, and they would take 185, 185, 185 damage. Is potentially a pretty high damaging spell. Otherwise, you can see the radius of the attack damage for the basic attack. It would impact all creatures in this 1 hex space from these crossbowmen. Very cool summon, like it very much. Next up in the tier 4 spells is going to be Masterful Vulnerability. So Masterful Vulnerability comes because I currently have this hero here. This is his speciality, but vulnerability in general is going to cause enemies to take additional damage. And so it'll start off doing an extra 20% damage. Any affected creature is going to take a 20% additional damage. For this masterful spell at max proficiency, any enemy creature that is affected by this masterful spell will also infect, I guess you could say, all of the adjacent creatures as well. So a really good way of softening up your opponents, making sure that you're going to be dealing massive amounts of damage to them. Next up, in the tier 5 spells, folks, we're into the tier 5 spells. It will be Coup de Grace. Coup de Grace is kind of nifty in the way it works, because the target enemy stack will die after its stack size is reduced below a certain amount. At tier 1, it's going to be 20%. So let's just say that I have 100 troglodytes. If I drop below 20 troglodytes, then the rest of the stack will die. So essentially, you could say that the stack has 20% less hit points, but also it's important to note that they're still going to have the damage and combat stats from that 20% all the way throughout. But this is, as a coup de grace might be, a really nice finishing move just to impact the enemies and make sure that they have to really make sure that they don't fall below a certain number of creatures per stack. Worth noting, if you get coup de grace up to max level proficiency, it will affect all enemy creatures. Really wild spell, really crazy, and it can go from 20% base level up to 40%. Crazy. Who's designing these spells? I want to know, because you are a sick and twisted individual, and I love it. Next up is going to be Nyera's Kiss. Nyera's Kiss is going to mark an enemy creature, and that enemy creature is going to be able to perform any action. They can do whatever they want. They can attack, they can move, they can use an ability. Whatever you want to do, you can do it. But every single time that they perform any action, they will take damage based off of this spell. Again, moving, attacking, anything at all, this enemy creature is going to take a bunch of damage. So by attacking me, they just cause themselves an awful lot of grief. And lastly, in the combat spells, we have for ourselves Shadow Army. This will increase the number of units in the target friendly stack by a certain amount, and it cannot double the stack. So let's just say right now I have my 26 noble cavalry. I will never be able to go past, let's call it, 52 noble cavalry is going to be the max for me, but this will increase the stack size of my army by a certain amount. 26 up to 37. I now get the hit points, I now get the attack damage and the stats and all the modifiers, and as you cast your spells or whatever abilities a creature might have, they're going to be impacted by this Shadow Army. And lastly, let's take a look at the adventure map spells. In the adventure map spells, first off, we have the tier 2 Read Mind spells. This is going to show the precise number and intention of neutral squads, meaning that you have basically a vision of whether or not they're going to want to join your army, whether they're going to want to fight you, whether they will want to just run away. And so the information is pretty high quality here. I can see that this is 225 of the Stinging Raw Shoth. They will flee from me. Really good information to have. And also worth noting that as you level up this spell, it will also give you information on heroes and also on enemy cities. And then in the tier 3 spells, we have Nyera's Veil. This will create a fog of war in a 12 square radius around your hero. You will conceal them from the opponent. You can use this 1 time per day. There's still a lot of unknowns with this. I have not been able to test this out with a friend to figure out exactly what this looks like to the opponent, whether it's just, oh, there's a little hex of new fog there, and whether or not they have to walk through it to dispel it. But knowing that you can cast Nyera's Veil to prevent enemies from seeing you and to cloak your intentions against them, now that feels pretty great.